can bring a destruction not only to a family, but to the entire Klal Yisrael, Chas v'Shalom. I remind you of the famous story, Gemara Gittin. Kamsa ubar kamsa harov Yerushalayim. You all know the story, we say it on Tisha B'Av. Fellow was making a wedding or party. He sent the invitations out. He told the delivery boy, go invite my friend Kamsa. Instead he went and invited the other guy, Bar Kamsa. Bar Kamsa is the enemy. He shows up to the wedding. The Malabai says, what are you doing here? I was invited. He says, it was a mistake. Go home. He says, please, I'm here already. You're embarrassing me. Let me eat. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for my plate. I need your $5. Scram, beat it, get out. He says, you're embarrassing me. I'll pay for half the party. I need your money. I cannot look at you at my simcha. Leave. I'll pay for the whole party. No, they pick him up. They send him out. Now I'm not saying what they did to Bar Kamsa is correct. They mistreated him, they abused him, they embarrassed him. What's the difference if he stays at the party? They should have just ignored him. But Bar Kamsa is a grown man. So you got embarrassed a little. So you're supposed to chalk it up to kaparat avonot. It's a tikkun of some sort. You're supposed to go home, go to sleep, tomorrow's another day. There's ways to cope with this. It's not the biggest asson, it's not the biggest tragedy of life. After all, you should have known that it was coming to you because you know he hates you. So you could make a logic. You shouldn't have been at the wedding. It was a mistake. He told you it was a mistake. So you should have left from the beginning. But you pushed it. Let me stay, let me pay. So you were egging him on also. Fine. Instead, Bar Kamsa has such an exaggerated reaction, we can't believe it. His next stop is Rome. Before you know it, he's talking to the Caesar. Mardubach Yehudaeh. The Jews have rebelled against you. And he orchestrates a whole scheme to prove to the Caesar that the Jews are rebels. And the Gemara says, because of his malshinut, because of his informing against us to the government, eventually Jerusalem was destroyed and the temple was burnt. All to the credit or the discredit of Bar Kamsa. So all the Mefarshim ask the same question. Bar Kamsa, you're a terrible person. You're a moser. We pray for the death of Bar Kamsa every day and his ilk. Any moser that can go to the government and jeopardize Jewish safety, Labinim v'la malshinim v'la mosrim al tehik tikva. 3 times a day we pray for them to die. So Bar Kamsa is bad. But the Gemara says, Akamsa u Bar Kamsa. What do you want from Kamsa? They're blaming the destruction on Kamsa also. Poor Kamsa, he was home crying that he wasn't invited to the party. He's innocent, he didn't do anything wrong. So in previous years we explained, based on the Baalei Musar, nothing is from my own. The Baalei Musar say, Kamsa, you're also guilty. You should have went to the wedding anyway. But I didn't get an invitation. So don't be stuck up. Don't stand on formalities. You know it's your best friend making a party. So you didn't get the invitation. That means it got lost. The invitation got lost in the mail. It happens. Even though my electric bill never got lost in the mail. But invitations get lost in the mail always. So you should have given the Balabai the benefit of the doubt. Go anyway. You know he's your friend. He probably forgot. If Kamsa would have went to the wedding, the host would have been in a good mood and maybe he wouldn't have reacted to Bar Kamsa like he did. But instead Kamsa says, no, it's the principle. If they got an invitation I didn't get, I'm not going. Okay, so you stood like that, so you're guilty as well. That's the pshat I heard many years ago. But then I opened up the Maharsha on the Gemara Gittin. Maharsha says a tremendous fadush. He says, this guy Kamsa is very guilty. Because Kamsa had a son that was a derelict. He had a son that was one of the biggest Risha'im in Klal Yisrael. Says Gaon Maharsha, who is Kamsa's wicked son? Bar Kamsa. And that's why he's called Bar Kamsa, the son of Kamsa. This is a story of Av Ubno. It's a father and a son. And the pshat is, if Bar Kamsa could become so bad, that's to the discredit of his father. Because if the child became such a villain, such a criminal in Klal Yisrael to be a Moser, the Gemara right away indicts not only the son, but where's the father? Akamsa ubar kamsa. The father must pay the price. And what the Gemara is telling us, because of a dereliction in Chinuch Yeladim, Jerusalem was destroyed. That means if Kamsa would have spent more time raising his children correctly, the Gemara is saying could be the Beit HaMikdash would still be around. So we shouldn't think that this chinuch is a small job. On the contrary, Devarim she'omdim berumo shel olam, it's things that stand on the highest echelons on earth. The question is, when we talk about Chinuch Yeladim, and by far I'm not the expert, I'm just saying over what I saw in Sfarim. Where do we begin? There's so many ideas and advices and instructions and things that are good to do and things that are not good to do. Where do we begin? And in a small dirasha like this, we cannot tackle every facet of parenting. But I'd like to say one or 2 points that I'm sure are nogea to all of us. Again, back to David HaMelech. David HaMelech says, Kechitzim biyad gibor ken b'nei ha'ne'orim. David compares parenting to an archer. Kechitzim biyad gibor ken b'nei ha'ne'orim. Raising children is like somebody that's shooting a bow and arrow. What's the analogy? There's many interpretations. I'm going to tell you one interpretation that I heard that makes beautiful sense to me. In archery, your goal is to hit the bullseye. The goal is to hit the center. Your odds become better the closer you are to the target. The further away the archer is, the less chance he has of hitting the center. So too raising children. The closer the parent is to the child, the better chance he has to impart values and ethics and the proper chinuch. But if there's a disconnect, if there's no connection between father and son and mother and daughter and vice versa, so then you cannot impart education. First there has to be a conduit, there has to be a kesher. First get close to your children. It's like when you're in school. The best teachers that you learned from were the teachers that showed warmth to you, that showed love to you, that showed care to you. The teachers that came in like police officers that were cold, that just gave the lesson, the regimen, and they walked out. You didn't enjoy them, you couldn't accept from them. But the teachers that showed a warmth and a smile and a hayuch and a compliment, so there was a closeness. And this is the challenge of our generation, because we're very busy to form a closeness with our children. In our community, we go to more weddings in a week than most Americans go in their lifetime. Our social calendar is very busy. And I've said many times to the members of our community, a wedding invitation is not a summons. Obviously our children come first, especially when they're young. This age will never repeat itself. Unless you're an Ed Kiddushin, unless you're being Mesader Kiddushin, or you're the caterer or the photographer, that's another story. That's a mitzvah she'ef shallah asot ayidei achirim. But just as an attendee, to go and spend time socially out of the house, and then what is the relationship? The father becomes and the mother becomes like truancy officers. They come in for a few minutes. Did you do your homework? Let me see it. Let me sign the test. Let me do this. Okay, I'm going to the wedding. So there's no kesher. The parents are very far from the child. They just check in once in a while to make sure, and just to give them instructions. Do this. Don't do that. Go to sleep at 9 o'clock. Don't be this. Make sure you wake up tomorrow for the bus. Rules and regulations. So the child doesn't feel the closeness. You know what closeness means? Let me tell you what I heard from one of the great Mechanchim. Closeness means, if you're a mother, to play games with your children. Of course, in our generation, Bitul Torah, it's better for the mother to read Mesilat Yesharim, or to talk to the Halal, and make all different tikkunim that they have, Perek Shirah 3 times a day. But the Rebbitzin said, no, play games with your children. It's not the game, because when you're playing games with them, they talk, and they start to open up, and you start to form a closeness to them. There was one lady, she used to put on her dining room table during the week a 1,000-piece puzzle. And she would sit down and make the puzzle. And all the kids would just come sit around and help their mother making the puzzle. But it wasn't about the puzzle. Now the kids, as they're making it, they start to talk and they open up, and there's all of a sudden a warmth and a closeness, and you could start to impart values and lessons without them knowing it. It's like you're giving them a sugar-coated medicine through a very, very pav action. But again, who has time to do a 1,000-piece puzzle? And who has time to play 2.5 hours of Monopoly with a child or checkers? We're busy. So this is why we see in a generation that there's a disconnect between parent and child. Now I agree with you. I don't think the rabbis of 2,000 years ago played checkers with their children. But we'll all agree that the methods of chinuch changed. 500 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 50 years ago, when you used to go to a parenting class, 50 or 100 years ago, what was a parenting class? They would teach you which weapon to use for the disobedience of the child. This is when you use a belt. This is when you use a slipper. This is when you use the back of the hand. This is when you go to front. In the olden days, chinuch was hitting. But we'll all agree that it changed. Today, hitting is not a method anymore. The children became more fragile, more weak, sensitive, whatever it is. So maybe they didn't play 50 years ago checkers with the child or make puzzles or just sit around and read books together. But today it changed. To get close to the child. I once heard when we were writing the book that the Rabbi mentioned, or was mentioned with Art Scroll. So I got close to Rav Nosson Sherman at the time, and he had a lot of stories, a lot of anecdotes, a lot of stories about himself. So he told me one story about his favorite teacher in the world, the best teacher that he ever had. He said he was a Hasidic rabbi. He wore a satin robe, Bekesher, satin robe. In Syrian we also say Bekesher. It's the same word. He wore a Bekesher, and his custom in the class was he would write on the blackboard whichever child was misbehaving, the bad list. And you didn't want to get on the bad list because your name would be on the blackboard for the whole shiur. It was embarrassing, so everybody tried to behave, but once in a while you were out of line, you put your name on it. This was his method. He said, one time, without any warning, the principal of the yeshiva walks into the classroom. unannounced. He says, my Rebbe, we all saw, took 3 steps back and stood right in front of the bad list. And we saw him starting to shake back and forth. And as he's shaking back and forth, we're trying to understand, what is the Rebbe doing? And then the principal left, and Rebbe turned his back to us, and we saw the whole bad list was on his satin bekisher. And we realized that our Rebbe didn't want to embarrass us in front of the principal. He says, this was between us and him, the bad list. But that the principal should see one of the boys' names on the list? No, that's not part of the deal. So he went and he erased it with his bekisher going back and forth to save us from embarrassment. He says, whatever came out of that Rebbe's mouth became Kodesh Kodashim. Whatever he told us became Torah Mesinai. We couldn't defy him because we saw how much love he had for us and how much Mesirut Nefesh, what he gave up for us. That was the best teacher. That's the same thing in parenting. But I read another story which is the opposite. I know you people are the tzaddikim, so you probably don't hear of any of these things, so I have to corrupt you a bit. You're not going to find this in the Gemara. There was a great Jewish actor by the name of Zero Mastel in Fiddler in the Roof. It's before my time, but I read the story. They interviewed him once and they asked him, where did he get the name Zero? V'yikare shemo b'Yisrael. Efes, zero. Even though we have a rabbi in the Gemara of Efes, but they weren't naming him after Rav Efes. That's why Sephardim said of Afas. Afas, not Efes. It wasn't Efes. But what does it mean, zero? What kind of name is Zero? So he said he had a teacher in school, and he wasn't the best student, and the teacher would always say, whatever his name was, Shimon, you're going to be a zero in life. And he always would hear his teacher's negative criticism. You're a zero, you're a zero, He says, so when I made it big on the Fiddler on the Roof as an actor, I changed my name to Zero to show the teacher, look what a zero I became. What it tells me is he never recovered from that teacher. It's not a normal reaction. To get back at the teacher, I mean, he was so confused from that. He became so hurt from it. He's going to take a revenge as an old man. Look how much of a zero I am. How important it is to create that warmth. Today, a negative word to a child could haunt him for many years. And a positive word to a child could create tremendous perot for the future. But again, we're human beings, we get nervous. Sometimes we have short temper, sometimes it's pinetat besofreim, a word comes out. But how careful we have to be. There was a school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A new teacher came to the school, they gave her a job as a public school. They give her the 8th grade. The principal says, the 8th grade is illiterate. They cannot read nor write. 7 grades of teachers, of the best teachers, have tried to educate this class. They are not teachable. We don't expect anything from you this year. Just babysit them. Your job begins next year. She was a naive woman. She said, okay, fine. She takes the class. 3 months later, she calls the principal in. She says they could read. It's impossible. 7 years we're trying to teach them to read. And you're going to tell me you taught them in 3 months? Just look. and they have the books in front of them, and each one's reading. The principal says it's a setup. They probably memorized their paragraphs. He takes out his own book, and he sends it around the table, arbitrarily picking different paragraphs. Read this, read that. And he sees they're fluent. He can't believe it. He says, what's your secret, or what's your magic? How did you get to teach these children? She says, you gave me the book of information of the kids. I see the first kid, it says he has an IQ of 173. Now 173 is a very high IQ. I see the next child has an IQ of 184. The next one 196. The other one 163. And I said to myself, kids, do you know that you are certified geniuses based on your IQ? Reading should be so easy for you. Reading should come so simple. And 3 months later they're reading. So the principal says, let me see that book. He takes the book and says, IQ? That's not their IQ. That's their locker numbers. But the teacher thought that they were geniuses, and she made the children think that they're geniuses, and she didn't know that that was their locker numbers, and they rose to the level of geniuses. And because for the first 7 years they were told, you're a nothing, and you're never going to read, and you don't know how to read, and you're dumb, and you're a shoteh, so they sunk to the low expectation of the teacher. And this is the same, teachers and parents, it's the same thing. Whatever I'm saying to a teacher, apply it to a parent. Shlomo HaMelech said, when it came to the mitzvah of rebuke, he said, Al tochach letz pen yisna'eka ochayach lechacham v'yahabeka. Shlomo says, save yourself trouble. Don't rebuke a letz. Letz is a scoffer. A letz isn't interested in criticism. You're going to go to the letz and tell him, listen, you shouldn't do this. He's going to resent you for it. So save yourself embarrassment, save yourself hardship. Al tochach letz. But then he says, Uchayach lechacham. You want to get a hana'ah of life? Go rebuke a hacham v'yahabeka. He'll thank you for it. He'll love you for it. David HaMelech says, Bakamim alay mere'im tishmana uznai. When my adversaries come against me, tishmana, I listen to what they have to say. Maybe they have a nice criticism. Maybe I can learn from them. So that Shlomo says, don't rebuke the letz, rebuke the hacham. But I once heard a beautiful explanation. Shlomo HaMelech is not telling us who to rebuke and who not to rebuke. He's telling us how to rebuke and how not to rebuke. Sometimes when we get angry at a child, so we start to call the child names. You fool, you dumb one, you don't know anything. And now we broke the child's spirit. How do we expect him to react to the musar? Shlomo says, Al tochach letz. When you're rebuking, don't call the guy a letz. Don't say, you letz, you fool, you imbecile, you scoffer, what are you doing? But instead, ochayach lechacham. When you go give rebuke, you say, you're such a hacham, you're so smart, you're so capable, this is beneath you. A hacham like you is so smart. This shouldn't be a behavior that's suitable for such a person. Ochayach lechacham. Rebuke him by calling him a hacham. V'yahabeka. And that'll create this ahava that we're talking, this love and this camaraderie. So that's the first lesson in parenting. To get close to the child. like the archer gets close to the target. But I'd like to say one more advice, if I may. In Pirkei Avot, in the beginning Mishnayot, in the first Perek, many of the Mishnayot begin with the following prefix. Hu haya omer. He used to say. Whatever the Tanah is. Simple interpretation is, these were certain lessons that the rabbi would say over and over again. Every rabbi has their lessons that they want to teach, and they say them over and over again. So the Mishnah says, Hu haya omer. This was his mantra, this was his teaching. But I once heard a beautiful derash. The rabbis were very careful. Before they would say over anything, they would make sure that they follow it themselves. Because they knew that if they don't follow or practice what they preach, their musar would fall on deaf ears. And therefore the Mishnah says, Hu haya, period. First they were, and then only after they were, omer, then they said it to others. First they internalized the musar themselves, Hu haya. And then they said, now we can say it over to others. Like it says in the parasha, we're going to read at the end of the Shemot. In Parashat Tetzaveh, the parasha begins, Ve'ata Tetzaveh. So one rabbi said, first Ve'ata, then Tetzaveh. First, do it yourself. And after you're doing it yourself, Tetzaveh, say it to others. The challenge in raising children is not raising children. The challenge is raising parents. We have to raise parents first. Once we raise ourselves, then automatically the child sees the proper example. But to give musar and pontificate and long-winded sermons, the children are so sharp. They know when it's not genuine. They know when it's not coming from a true source. First it has to be ve'ata, then tetzaveh. Hu haya, then omer. There was a rabbi in the yeshiva many years ago. There was a boy, he used to come home every day from the yeshiva, and he was addicted to figs. You're laughing, brother. He was addicted to figs. You just eat them all day. So the mother and the father say, you have to stop this. No, I like figs. So they went up to the rabbi in the school. They said, Rabbi, could you have a talk to my son? He's eating too many figs. I'll talk to him. That day, kid comes home, right to the pantry, he's eating more figs. He said, the Rabbi didn't speak to you today? No, he didn't speak to me. I can't believe it. I went up to the school, I told. They go back up again. Rabbi, could you speak to the child about the figs? Oh yeah, sonny boy, come here. Your mother says you're eating too many figs. Don't eat too many. Okay, Rabbi. He said, you couldn't do that yesterday? We had to come up again for you to... He said, no, I couldn't do it yesterday. He says, why? He says, because in lunch, I myself was eating figs in front of the child. How could I go after I myself ate 5 or 6 figs in front of the child? Tell me you can't eat. But today I was makpid. In lunch I didn't have any figs. Now already, my words will have an influence. This is the challenge of parents. Less speeches and more actions. Like the saying goes, actions speak louder than words. If this is true, I'd like to say one pshat in the Gemara, and then I'll let you continue tonight's program. It's my own pshat. If it's emet, it is. If it's not, so it's not. But the concept is emet. The famous Gemara in Shabbat. Gemara in Shabbat says, Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu thought it was going to be an easy thing. He was get the Torah, come down, give it. All of a sudden you see there's a big protest. All the angels are protesting. Mali lud isha benenu. What is a mortal human being doing over here? So they say, God says, L'kaber Torah ba. Came to get the Torah. Get the Torah. Hamdagin, Uzah. Such a cherished a possession that's been around. Tatka ad dorot, before the creation. You're going to give it now. You're going to squander it on human beings, on mortals. Ma enosh ki tizkerenu, ben adam ki tefkedenu. We're not letting it. So Moshe Rabbeinu now he finds himself in a quandary. All the malachim are against him. So he turns to Borei Olam for support. Borei Olam says to Moshe, answer them. Answer them. They're spewing fire. I'm afraid that they're going to burn me from Haval PM. Borei Olam says, don't worry, hold on to my Kisei HaKavod. The Kisei HaKavod will protect you. It's fireproof. You'll be safe. Answer them. So he holds on to the Kisei HaKavod. So he tells the Malachim, Malachim, you want the Torah? What does it say in the Torah? It says in the Torah, honor your parents. Do you have parents? I said, no. It says in the Torah, keep Shabbat. Do you work 6 days that you need to take a break? Shabbat? No, you're right. What else? It says, don't swear on God's name falsely. Do you have business that you need to go to court and swear on God's name? And he went through a couple of these mitzvot to show that the angels are not shayach to the Torah. And the angels came along and said, we surrender. Sounds like a very, very mehila, a juvenile mahloket here. The angels originally were holding Torahs for us. And then Moshe Rabbeinu says, Kibud Avim, do you have parents? He's right. We don't have parents. Okay, you take the Torah. What, the Malachim didn't know that claim? This is not a second grade argument. What was the Havamina and what was the Maskana? I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu answers them something that's quite pashut. Unless we say like this. What does it mean the angels didn't want to give the Torah? The Malachim must have known the first pasuk in the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim, Bishvil Yisrael, Bishvil Torah. The whole world was created so the Jewish people will receive the Torah. The Malachim weren't coming to undo the purpose of the creation. When they were telling Moshe, what, they didn't want to give the Torah? What's going to stay for the Shamayim? So why God create the world then? Why God create Jewish people? What? They weren't coming to undo the whole purpose of Briyat HaOlam, that's for sure not. Malachim knew that Torah must go down. But you know what the Malachim's claim to Moshe was? We're going to teach the Torah. We'll be the teachers. Only holy angels that are on a high level of spirituality, it's for us to be the educators to transmit this holy Torah to the people. It was a teachers' union. They were coming along and they said, we don't want to give the Torah to Moshe. We'll come down and we'll be the teachers. Moshe Rabbeinu then says, do you have kibud av? No, we don't have parents. Well, Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, how do you expect to be an effective teacher? You're going to come to the classroom and say, you have to respect your parents, kibud avayim, and then the student's going to say, but you don't do it. You're going to come along and say, Shemirat Shabbat, and then the little student's going to raise in, Gavriel HaMalach, do you keep Shabbat? No, we're Malachim, you don't have to keep Shabbat. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, how do you expect to be teachers of Torah if you don't follow what you teach? It was a mahloket in education. The Malachim held, no, we can teach Torah so long as you give it over, clear, with spirituality, with all that, the student will receive it. Moshe Rabbeinu is impossible. You're forgetting the main element of education. If you don't practice it, you can't preach it. The angels accepted the argument. If it's true what I'm saying, the angels did get their wish when in the mother's womb. It says when the baby's in the mother's womb, the malach comes down and teaches the child Torah. So they got their wish. But guess what happens when the baby comes out? The Torah is forgotten. Why is the Torah forgotten? Because Torah that's studied from a teacher that doesn't practice it, that Torah is not worth remembering. That Torah cannot have an effect for the future. And therefore, as the Borei Olam says, forget that Torah that you learned in your mother's womb. The Malach is not Shomer Shabbat. He doesn't keep Kibud Avayim. All those lessons cannot have a true impact. Now go learn it from a parent that does it. Go learn it from those that fulfill it. Go do it from the Atat Tzaveh, from Huaya Omer. That's the second lesson. One, get close to your children. And number two, work more on raising yourselves, ourselves, and less on raising the children. And automatically, the child will see the proper role model example. And then, Be'azat Hashem, will be fulfilled on us. V'chol banayich limudei Adonai, v'rav shalom banayich, kol ro'ehem yakirum, ki hem zera berach Hashem. All those that will see our children, Bezrat Hashem, will see that they are a blessed seed, with yirat shamayim al penehem, with the proper conduct and midot, and that's our obligation. Akamsa ubar kamsa harov Yerushalayim. And if that's what destroyed Jerusalem, then it's Chinuch Yeladim that will be able to rebuild Yerushalayim and the Beit HaMikdash b'merav b'yameinu amen.
Rabbi Mansour, Chazak u'Baruch.